Hey everyone, I'm the Canadian Lad, and today I watched the trailer of Loki Season 2 at 0.25x speed and found 14 hidden details that you might have missed in your first viewing. Now I know I'm late with this breakdown and I definitely don't want to repeat the hidden details that you might have watched already. So I guarantee you the details that I'm about to show you, most of them will be unique and make you more excited about the show. So with that in mind, let's begin the video. Number 1. When we see Loki glitching throughout the trailer, or as Obi calls it, time slipping, notice whenever it occurs, moments before Loki disappears, the background surroundings also look distorted. This suggests that when Loki time slips, he is actually bending reality through time, causing whatever we see through him to also appear distorted. Now this is significant because it implies that Loki glitching in the MCU is quite different from what we saw in Spider-Verse, where the glitching doesn't affect the surroundings or the physical world. It only affects the subject. But in the case of Loki, it completely warps the reality around him. And I really love the way Marvel CGI'd Loki's time-slipping animation here, because it looks grotesque, it looks like a painful experience for Loki. It appears as if everything everywhere is pulling Loki through time all at once. Number 2. We see a movie premiere taking place in London for a film called Zaniac. Now Zaniac is actually a Thor villain from the 80s comics, who originated from the Dark Dimension. He possesses hosts like Venom does, but makes them desire to specifically kill women. Now at the same time, there was another character called Brad Wolf, who is an actor and he happens to play a role of a serial killer whose name was also Zaniac. But then Brad Wolf does get possessed by the real Zaniac, merging the two personas into one. And it seems like this character is MCU's Brad Wolf. And we can even see a sign here that says, "Marry me, Brad Wolf." But notice here, Loki and Mobius seem to be chasing and then confronting Brad, indicating Brad might have some information that Loki and Mobius are after. And what could that be? Well, perhaps Brad knows where Sylvie is. And I'd assume that's the first thing Loki and Mobius would like to find out at the beginning of Season 2. Number 3. During the interrogation scene, we can observe two shadows of Loki, meaning he's casting illusions where we see multiple Lokis at once. But notice in the shadow, Loki is slowly conjuring his signature horns. And if you remember in Avengers 1, Loki does tend to go back to his original Asgardian form whenever he has to intimidate others. And that's exactly what Loki is doing in this scene. Although if we take another close look at the shadows, we can see that he still retains his black suit. This suggests that Loki will only manifest his horns, while keeping his original black suit intact. Number 4. In the same scene, notice Brad is being held by two different Lokis from each side, with one shadow on our left pulling Brad's right hand toward the wall. But what's interesting is that none of these Lokis are visible in their physical form. Yet in the previous scene, Brad was looking back and forth between the two Lokis. So this could be the first time where Loki projects illusions that occupy physical space in the real world but remain invisible, which is why we only see them in the shadows. Number 5. Now after the interrogation is over, Loki's illusions might revert back to their physical form, explaining the three different Lokis. But there's one detail here that I've seen nobody talk about yet, and it's this.
A little over the top, don't you think? I thought it was spot on.
Mobius tells Loki a little over the top, don't you think? But then immediately gets taken by surprise once he realizes he was talking to one of Loki's illusions while the real Loki is standing over here. So Loki's deception has gotten so good that even Mobius failed to detect which one is the real one. Number 6. There's a funny scene where Mobius asks Obi if the helmet of his spacesuit is cracked.
Is this cracked?
Yes, babe. Yes, babe.
And Obi quickly comes up with a solution where he literally duct tapes the visor of the helmet. But notice my guy Obi had other spacesuits and helmets in the background, and yet he chose to fix Mobius's helmet with duct tape instead of giving him a new one. Number 7. We see Mobius walking towards the multiversal timeline wearing his spacesuit. And over here, this giant device seems to be working as a filter that merges multiple branches of timeline into one. So this could be a device that stabilizes the multiversal timeline whenever it starts branching out. But notice in this shot, Mobius, Obi, Loki, and Hunter B-15 seem to be looking at something very bright, indicating they might be gazing at an intensely bright object, aka the multiversal timeline. And this device that Mobius is holding here could be a miniature version of this machine. Number 8. In this scene, Sylvie is carrying a sword and is approaching someone who has a similar hairstyle like Victor Timely. So this room full of mannequins and so many clocks on the wall could be Victor Timely's lab. In fact, if you focus on this object, this looks like one of Victor Timely's Timely's devices that he used in his presentation. So my theory is this is where Victor Timely cracks the code to the multiverse, and from here he works on the idea of creating the TVA. Which brings me to my next detail, number 9. Notice Ravonna Renslayer, aka Rebecca Tormine, is also standing in a dark room that has the same mannequins in the background. So either she's working with Victor Timely, or just like Loki and Mobius, she's also trying to find out who's behind it all and who created the TVA. And notice this weapon on Renslayer's hand glows with orange energy, the same color scheme that we see inside the TVA. Now what's interesting is that in the comics, Victor Timely would often use robots as stand-ins for himself as he continued to conquer the multiverse. These robots could even age, allowing Kang and his stand-ins to pose not only as Victor Timely, but also as Victor Timely Jr. and Victor Timely III as the years went by. And these could be the same robots that we eventually see as the Timekeepers. Number 10. For this detail, I have to give you a small recap from Season 1, where He Who Remained said this.
I weaponized Goliath. And I ended the multiversal war.
So he weaponized Goliath and harnessed its power to end the multiversal war. And where does Goliath live? Inside the void. And what is the void? Well, whoever the TVA prunes, they all end up in the void. Alright, so here's the detail. Notice Rebecca Tormine seems to be in a place that looks exactly like the void. So Rebecca being there could indicate one of two things. One, she was pruned, or two, she was there when Kang weaponized Goliath, implying we might end up seeing how Kang actually did it. Number 11. In the trailer, we now get an extended shot of this scene that we already saw in the post-credit scene of Quantumania. Notice some of the electrical energy is colored purple, indicating this is indeed a Kang variant, aka Victor Timely, who will eventually go in to create the TVA in the future. Now there's one more detail here. Notice this device on the stage does look quite similar to the device held by Mobius. Now even if they're not the same device, but all of them having a similar pattern might indicate that these are all Victor Timely's machines, and these might play a crucial role in the plot as well. Now this detail keeps me awake at night. Well, maybe not that much, but you know what I mean. So let me know your thoughts about this in the comments. Number 12. In this scene, a Chrono Monitor that shows the branches of timeline falls apart. And in the background, we can clearly see a giant statue of Kang the Conqueror instead of the 3 Timekeepers. Now, if I take you back to Season 1, notice this Chrono Monitor looked a lot different. In Season 2, it looks a bit obsolete, but Season 1 had a more advanced version. Which makes me wonder, are we gonna see an earlier version of the TVA? Perhaps just after the TVA was created? And maybe that's where Loki ended up at the end of Season 1. So my theory is Loki did not end up in an alternate TVA, and this is not an alternate Mobius.
What are you talking about? Who are you? What's your name?
Boots on the ground now, archives.
Who are you?
I think this is just a past version of the TVA, who still didn't come across a Loki variant, and that's why Loki is time-slipping, because he possesses knowledge of the present TVA while his physical form is stuck in the past TVA. And maybe that's why Loki says the following in the beginning of the trailer.
I've been pulled through time, between the past and the present.
So if my theory is correct, this could be the reason why Loki is glitching inside the TVA. Number 13. The Citadel at the end of time now appears to be damaged after the death of He Who Remains. The last time we saw it in the final episode of Season 1, the roof of the Citadel was still intact, meaning we will visit the Citadel in present time and visually see the aftermath of He Who Remains' death. Number 14. I've seen a lot of people talk about how we will get to see a much more dangerous version of Miss Minutes, but one thing that a lot of people don't notice is that this guy that Miss Minutes stepped on is probably Victor Timely, and this woman trying to help him could be Renslayer, because notice this bag on her shoulder and her headpiece, both of this match with Renslayer, who we've seen in a previous shot. And that's it. This would be my in-depth breakdown of Loki Season 2 trailer. Let me know which one was your favorite detail, and of course, please comment down below if you noticed something that I haven't. Now, if you like this video, then please give me a thumbs up, grab the subscribe button, and turn notifications on. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter to get updates about my videos. Till then, I'll see you lads in the next one.
Always have been, always will be.